Okay, so this next video lecture is the continuation of our Module 1, the Accounting Information System on the perspective of accountants. Okay, so to continue under the information environment, so what is the difference or similarities between our accounting information system and management information system? Okay, so of course in our discussion in the previous video lecture, so we've mentioned about what accounting information system is. Okay, so basically this is the process that involves the financial transactions. Okay, so example is sales of goods or purchases of inventory and the like. Okay, so for the non-financial transactions, we only include it under the AIS if it directly affects the processing of our financial transactions. An example of this is addition of newly approved vendors, okay, which will then be used later on as a source of our supplies or inventory. Okay, so here they directly affect the processing of our transactions in terms of purchases, okay, and other related accounts. What about Management Information System or MIS? So here, basically our MIS also includes AIS. And aside from that, it also gives importance and processes non-financial transactions that are not normally processed in our AIS. Okay, so here, if we will look into the bigger picture, actually, AIS should be part of the MIS. Okay, so an example that is given here in our module is tracking of the customer complaints. Although this is this may relate to our sales transaction, but it does not directly affect. But later on, if you would try to analyze, if the entity will not address these complaints, then later on, these customers might not buy again, okay, the services or the products of the entity. So it will also lead into sales losses, okay, if not prevented. Okay, so we have here an illustration. The illustration which shows, okay, how MIS and AIS are placed, okay, in an organization. So basically, both our AIS and MIS, they are our information systems, okay, in an organization. However, for AIS, here we just focused on the financial transactions, okay, so such as our sales, okay, and others, and this will be processed in our accounting system, and then we will also be generating financial reports, okay, while under the MIS, okay, so as mentioned earlier, this is the broader type, which will include our AIS. In fact, our AIS will be under the financial management systems, okay, for MIS. So aside from the accounting or AIS, management information system will also include marketing, distribution, human resource systems, and other functions or divisions of an entity. Okay, so this is how AIS and MIS, okay, is is placed, okay, in our information system. Okay, so our AIS, it has subsystems, okay, so it as illustrated, okay, in this illustration. For the AIS, we have what we call Transaction Processing System. So what is TPS? So here, this supports the daily business transactions. Okay, so basically, the entity will have a process flow on how to collect the data from the transactions, what are the documents that they use, as well as the internal controls to avoid errors and fraud. Okay, another subsystem of our AIS is the general ledger or financial reporting system. So this is already the processing, okay, of the transactions into reports. So this will produce the financial statements and financial reports that is being used by the management for decision making. Okay, and another subsystem of our AIS is the Management Reporting System or MRS. So here, this will produce special purpose reports for internal use. So an example of this is our cost sheets reports, okay, and others, okay, for internal reporting and use, okay, purposes. So these are the subsystems of our AIS. Okay. So in the book that we use, okay, as the reference by Hall, Accounting Information Systems, they provided a general model for AIS. Okay, but depending on the need of the organization, actually, they can create their own model. But this is the basic, okay, or general model, okay, for IAS. So we have the in this illustration, we have here the information system. So database management. Basically, our database management, this is where the information is stored, okay? And anytime that an entity needs it, they can pull out a part of the information from the database management. It's like a bank of information, okay? So in this model, we have here the external sources of data, okay, that affects the financial transactions of the entity or the elements of our financial statements. And then, this data will be collected and then it will be processed and the information will be generated in the form of financial reports or financial statements, and this will be used for by the users, may it be internal users or external users. For financial accounting, our financial statement is used mainly for external reporting purposes. For the internal use, these are our management reports, okay? And then, after the internal users or the management, okay, analyzed and read the financial reports, they will have the feedback, okay, and that will be our internal source of data as part of the data collection in the next transactions coming from the external sources, okay. So aside from that, database management or database which we store the information can also be a help, okay, in the data processing and to aid the management also in creating or generating the information, okay. So this is how an AIS, okay, in an organization is, okay. This is an ideal or general model, okay. So with this, if an entity will have this model, so they will understand how the information or the data are collected and coming from and how it should be processed. So they have the understanding that these are the factors that affect the information system, okay. So again, depending on the need and the nature of the entity, they can have their own specific model for their AIS. So this is just for a simple entity. Okay. For the data sources. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, data sources, these are financial transactions, okay, that enters into information system. So if you could see here, that data sources can be from internal source or external source. Okay, so you already know the external financial transactions. Okay, examples of this are sales, purchases, okay, disbursement, or receipts of cash. For the internal financial transactions, of course, these are the exchange or movements of the resources within the organization. So, for example, in a production, movement of raw materials from different divisions that will be transformed into work in process and eventually apply labor and overhead to uh, to transform it into finished goods inventory. Okay, and as well as depreciation of equipment and the like. So all the transactions that takes place within the organization, this is our internal financial transactions. Okay. For transforming the data into information functions. Okay, so here, according to our general model for AIS, so data collection, again, as mentioned earlier, this is capturing of the transactions data, the details, the amount or the account that should be used, okay, the date, and others. And then, we will record it into our journals or forms, and later on it will be validated, okay, and if needs to be edited, okay, it will be for the data processing. So in our accounting cycle, this is the classifying, okay, transcribing, sorting, batching, merging, calculating, and summarizing, as well as comparing the data, okay, so that this can be generated into financial reports. For the data management, this is storing, retrieving, and deleting. So again, as mentioned earlier, our database is like information bank where we store our data or information. And if we need it, we can retrieve it. And if there are items which do not help or is not important, okay, or is not part of our AIS, so it can be deleted, okay, or it is not being used anymore, okay, so that space of those storage can be free, okay, for the next data that will be stored. For the information generation, of course, this is compiling, arranging, formatting, and presenting. This is now our financial report or financial statements already. Okay, so this is how the example of the general model of AIS is. Okay. What about the characteristics of useful information? So how do we know if an information is useful? Okay, so we have here the following characteristics. So regardless of the physical form or technology, the usefulness of information has the following characteristics. First, it should be relevant, meaning it will serve a purpose. If the information is relevant, meaning the decision of the users will be influenced by using that information. That is relevance. Okay. Another is it should be timely. Okay, meaning no older than the time period of the action supports, or all those information that relates only to a particular period that the management needs. That should only be included, okay, in the data collection, in the reporting. Another is it should be accurate, meaning free from material errors or fraud. Another characteristic is of course, the information should be complete. Okay, all information that are essential for decision making or task should be included. And of course, it should be summarized. Okay, so that's why this is in the form of reports. It should be aggregated in accordance with the user's needs. So summarizing, meaning from all of the transactions, it will be sorted and compiled, okay, so that it can be um, uh, in the form of a, for example, account and its balances in the financial statements, and it can easily be understood, okay, by the users for decision making. So those are the different characteristics of a useful information. Okay, so our next video lecture will discuss, okay, the next part of our module, which is the next topic, organizational structure and our AIF.